Hello, friends. So I just wanted to share my personal experience of what many people call autistic meltdown or autonomic storms, and the aspect of how self-harm can play a role in this. There are, of course, a lot of biases and stigmas attached to the idea of self-harm, and particularly because it's associated with like making a choice, having intention to do something that society deems to be unacceptable or shameful. I certainly was given a lot of those messages and didn't understand why I was in periods of extreme distress, particularly around. For me, lack of sleep, combined with relationship conflict, why I was hitting my own head. Um, and it turns out that I am not alone in that there's a lot of autistic folks and neurodivergent folks who, when they experience meltdown or autonomic storms, that they may hit themselves or others, and specifically in the head. When I saw a neurologist after 10 years of this, he broke it down for me, like exactly what was happening and how there was all these chemicals that would flood into my head when it got hit, that were like relieving. And now that I understand the nervous system a little bit better all these years later, I can understand that when there's a lot of like autonomic or nervous system overload, something that's so intense, and specifically pain is one of the most effective ways to sort of like bring clarity back to the nervous system, because the nervous system can um, connect with the pain, and the pain sort of overrides all of the other overwhelm or chaos that's happening with the sensory system. So, the sensory system there is to make sense of what's happening in our environment so that we can determine if we feel safe or not. And when we're really not feeling safe and the sensory input is like all discombobulated, right? And the nervous system is like red alert, that's when an autonomic storm would happen. And that intense pain and also like big physical movement and contact that happens when you get hit, is going to give the nervous system something to like organize to, I guess you could say it. So what do we do about this? Because for me, like I said, I was having lots of migraines also from um, just chronic dysregulation of the nervous system. My biggest nerve is offering me a yawn because this is the kind of stressful, scary thing to talk about, right? We're not really supposed to talk about this in life. But I did experience at least once a month having what I then called panic attacks and what I now call meltdowns or autonomic storms, um, that involved hitting my head. And I did end up at a neurologist who was like, "Yeah, you're potentially giving yourself concussions each time, which long term is gonna have impacts on your brain function, in your brain health." And so uh, for a number of reasons, I was in a situation where the if the meltdowns were to have continued, it would have impacted my parenting rights, which was really, really scary to me because I love my kiddo so much. And so I was very extremely motivated to eliminate my meltdowns. And I didn't have all this language at that time, but I did have DBT, and DBT was designed to support folks with self-harm. And I now see how DBT is like, I wonder if, Marsha Linehan, the creator of DBT, who was diagnosed with borderline and then created this whole treatment method to support folks with the diagnosis of borderline. I wonder if it was like if all of that was just that current time period's answer to high masking, assigned female at birth, and gender divergent folks' autism. Because it is like so fascinating how well it lines up with what high masking AFAB and gender diverse folks with autism benefit from, which is mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. So through DBT, I learned distress tolerance and opposite action. And so when I could feel a meltdown coming on, I would grab ice. I would hold ice because it's also a really strong sensation for your nervous system to orient to. I would sit on my hands. I would do counting. I would do, listen to things. Excuse me, my nervous system's like, this is a hard thing to talk about. It is. It's hard to remember. I can feel myself sitting on my hands on the edge of my bed the first time I tried not to. And it was like my body was burning from the inside out because to not give my body what it needed in that moment was really, really intense. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. What I would probably recommend now is a lot more prevention and accommodation. But in an emergency, it calls for intense things. So holding ice is maybe easier for the nervous system than sitting on your hands. But I was very determined. So, in the prevention and accommodation perspective, what we can do is really recognize that these meltdowns are here to give us information, right? To say, hey, something or the accumulation of something was too much. And yeah, um, for me, and for a lot of autistic folks or neurodivergent folks, you know, um, taking care of yourself in the day to day so that you're not building up like overstimulated, 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 so that your nervous system eventually has to do one of these meltdowns or shutdowns. It can go in either direction. All my nervous system will have me faint as well. Um, is to get really serious about accommodating the heck out of your life. And that's going to look different for each of us, right? But for me, it's about like getting enough sleep, having my safe foods accessible all of the time, and like consistent calories, never letting myself go past 3 hours without some food, having my favorite drinks nearby, right? Having the comfiest of clothes, having no overhead lights, having a hat on so that if somebody randomly turns on an overlight or I have to go to the grocery store, I'm got some protection, having my colored filtered glasses and my prisms, doing my daily walk and time in nature, doing my daily creativity and connection with art, my daily meditation, having a schedule that is has a late morning because I don't do well with rushing in the early morning. Having work that's at home so that I can be in my comfortable environment, like making sure the temperature is a comfortable place for me. So spending extra money on AC because being hot is really hard for my nervous system. Thousands of things that I do every day to make sure that my nervous system is spending the least amount of energy on anything that could possibly be eliminated so that all of my nervous system capacity, which changes day to day, can be spent on the things that are most meaningful to me, and so that I am not getting to the point where my nervous system has to be like, emergency, emergency, So I actually haven't had a meltdown in 10 years, which is extraordinary and such a big deal. And not because I am trying to stop myself from having meltdowns, but because I have been resourcing my nervous system so much so that it doesn't have to tell me that something's that wrong. Like, for example, when I was, had family visiting and we had 2 days in a row of all sorts of activities and they were only here for 3 days, I knew that if I didn't take a break, that I would get myself into a dangerous position nervous system wise. So I said, I'm going to take the day off on the third and last day, right? And didn't join them until dinner, which there was a big part of me that was like, that's not cool. They're only here for 3 days. You should, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, nope, I can't. So I'll meet you guys at 5, right? And those kind of choices are the choices that are like, can be awkward. People can get their feelings hurt if they don't know you well or understand. It can limit. I'm a person who doesn't drive at night, et cetera. So I could, but there would be consequences, right? So, um, creating a life that is super, super, super supportive of you can reduce the chances that a meltdown needs to happen, right? And doing all of that um, requires us taking a look at our internalized ableism, right? Are we saying that we can't give ourselves that life that's super accommodating to us? We can't do those accommodations and modifications because we're not disabled enough, or we don't have an official disability, or we want to look normal, right? All of those are ways that ableism shows up in our lives. And so being willing to take a look at our internalized and externalized ableism and really consider like, where is that coming from? Was that yours? Did you inherit it from a culture, a family, etc.? And yeah, we know these things are super connected to white supremacy, right? And so, um, giving yourself the opportunity to do that research, to look up what are these connections? Why do I think that um, it doesn't make sense for me to give myself this life that's um, allowing for me to not be in the position to be having to experience a meltdown or experience um, uh, hitting myself, and to recognize that it's not the meltdown that's the problem. It's the society that encourages us to not take care of ourselves, to mask, that not just encourages us, but requires us, punishes us into all of that. And so to also take time for that grief and that anger around the fact that we've been in an experience where we've been asked to um, not take care of ourselves in such a way that then we're being blamed for it because now we're self-harming, right? And it's like self-harm doesn't come actually from the self. It comes from a nervous system that has no other resources, likely because um, society has not allowed that person to take care of themselves in the way that makes the most sense for their nervous system wiring, their neurotype. So, anyways, that is my sharing around head hitting and autistic meltdowns and autonomic storms. And I hope it will be of encouragement and support to somebody out there. And if anybody else has other resources or stories to share, I always love to hear those. So put those in the comments. And I'm sending you so much love.